So hello, good evening. Let's start our discussion about this current affairs part or the daily news analysis part. Now if you see, the first news is related to this Trump-Modi signal regarding the trade negotiation. See, trade negotiation between United States of America and India is continuously going on since a long time. It was being expected that maybe we will come up with a trade deal or some kind of free trade agreement. But then we saw some problems taking place between India and US, especially US putting tariff approximately up to 50% tariff on Indian goods. And then the relations, somewhere we found that maybe the relations are deteriorating. But now again we see somewhere a positive signal from both sides that maybe the discussions are going on and we might see some kind of trade agreement or trade deal being made between USA and India. Now this one is a news in transition. We have to wait for what exactly happens in this particular case. So we'll wait and see what happens. Right now we don't need to worry much about this particular news. Look at this another news. This one is related to Kachhathiu Island. Now this place is quite important for us. Kachhathiu Island and the Spark Strait. Both of these are in the same territory, we will find out. So look at this particular map. Now this is our India, this is the Tamil Nadu part, and here you have Sri Lanka. Now in between, here you have this Rameshwaram location, and this is the Spark Strait that you can see over here. Jaffna, which is part of Sri Lanka. Now see, this is the location, this red dot over here is showcasing an island named Kachhathiu Island. Now see, this island is very important because in case of India and Sri Lanka, this has become a point of contention or a point of discussion, or let's say a point of conflict. Now you need to know the basic facts first of all about this particular island. We say a very small uninhabited island. That means nobody actually lives on this island. It's an uninhabited island. Okay, size or area 285 acres approximately. Location Spark Strait. If you have to be more specific, it is 33 kilometers northeast. You see here we have Rameshwaram. On the northeastern side of Rameshwaram you have this Kachhathiu Island, and 62 kilometers southwest of Jaffna. Jaffna, which is here in Sri Lanka, southwest of Jaffna we see this particular location. Now it is said that this particular island, it was created as a result of volcanic eruption that took place in the 14th century. Okay, this is the basic geographical fact that we all must know. Now what is so interesting about this particular island? So this island is very important from religious perspective. There is a church called St. Anthony Church which is located on this particular island, and many people living in Tamil Nadu and many people living in Sri Lanka, for them this place is very important. This church is very important. So you will find that there is an annual pilgrimage for the fishermen from India and Sri Lanka. Just like people go for Amarnath Yatra. So similarly annual pilgrimage is there for this St. Anthony Church. Okay, this location becomes quite important. First of all, this is like, it's a boundary between India and Sri Lanka. So maritime boundary marker between India and Sri Lanka is something we can say. Second, this area is resources. So the fishermen of Sri Lanka and fishermen of Tamil Nadu, all of them want to get all the fishes and all those resources, fishery resources from this area. So now there will obviously be conflict because people from Sri Lanka are coming, people from Tamil Nadu are coming. There is obvious fight or conflict that is possible over here. Then when you look at it from strategic perspective, you think about the geopolitics. Okay, now geopolitically Indian Ocean region is quite important, and in this particular region what we simply say is this region is highly sensitive region. If there is entry of any member in this area, it is a security challenge that could be for India. So geopolitically it's an important region, this particular region, and when in case this particular island is controlled by India, maybe India will have an upper hand. If Sri Lanka is controlling it, Sri Lanka will have an upper hand. So this is one part that we can understand. Now moving ahead. If we see this conflict, I can say this conflict is continuing since history or since a very long time. Now what happened, see, this island initially was part of Jaffna kingdom, which was that of the kingdom of Sri Lanka called Jaffna kingdom. It was part of that Jaffna kingdom. Later on, this Ramnath Zamindari, so this was from Tamil Nadu, and in Tamil Nadu there is something called Madurai. There they have this dynasty called as Nayak dynasty. So under this Nayak dynasty came this particular island. So earlier it was under the kingdom of Sri Lanka, then it came under the control of a dynasty who is living in Madurai, that is Tamil Nadu. And if you see what was happening during the British Raj or British rule, sometimes it was under the Indian rule or this Madras presidency at that time, it was under that rule. Sometimes it is under the rule of Sri Lanka. So the point is, it was always in conflict, sometimes on this side, sometimes on that side. So that's why we see there is conflict since the colonial time that we are observing. Now after independence in the year 1974, when in India Prime Minister was Indira Gandhi, and in Sri Lanka we had this person called Sirimao Bandar Naike. Now both of them came together and signed this particular agreement that we call as 1974 Maritime Boundary Agreement. Now just like we tried to sort disputes, boundary dispute with countries. Let's say with Bangladesh we signed one land agreement in 2015 to sort out the boundary dispute. Similarly, in 1974, because with Sri Lanka we don't have land boundary, we have maritime boundary, which we are trying to sort out. Okay, for that this agreement was done. Now if you see the terms of this particular agreement, number one, it says sovereignty of Kachatiyu is ceded to Sri Lanka. That simply means the sovereignty or this Kachatiyu island will be under the sovereignty of Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka has the complete control. Now this agreement made it clear, now this will be with Sri Lanka and not India. Earlier there was confusion, if you see. During British Raj there is confusion, but here we have given to Sri Lanka. Then Indian fishermen lost the fishing rights around this particular island because now it's under Sri Lanka. And Indian pilgrims allowed to visit St. Anthony Church without visa. Now this is because here we have this church which is very important. So this provision was made that if these people want to visit this particular church, there should not be any provision of visa or anything like that. They should be allowed. So this agreement has provided all these things. Now see, if you see the legal basis of this particular agreement, under which law this agreement is happening, then it is happening under United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS treaty that had already taken place at the international level, and most of the countries, they adhere to this particular treaty. Okay, now the part that you need to understand over here is, right now or since a long time we are facing a problem of fishermen issue between India and Sri Lanka. Many times many Indian fishermen go into that area and then they are arrested by the authorities of Sri Lanka, and that becomes a problem between India and Sri Lanka, especially Tamil Nadu doesn't like it. So this is a problem. Now those fishermen say that traditionally we have been doing this fishing stuff over here in this area. Suddenly you people say that Kachatiyu belongs to Sri Lanka. How come we will not go here? So they say we have traditional rights over here. We are supposed to go there. But 1974 agreement, after that now it is with Sri Lanka, which is not a good thing. And this agreement has only given right to pilgrimage. People who are visiting this church, only they are getting the right. What about the fishermen? Fishermen did not get any right as such because of that 1974 agreement. So this has become a cause of concern. Now there is one more problem. These Indian fishermen from Tamil Nadu, when they go for fishing and all, they use something called bottom trawling. Okay, you can search it on Google just to see how this bottom trawling and all happens. But to simply understand, they'll be using a long net using which they'll try to get most of the fishes. Now, this kind of a practice is considered to be very unsustainable and not good for the ocean or for the maritime area. And the Sri Lankan government has actually banned this method. Using this bottom trawling method for fishing is banned by Sri Lankan government. But the fishermen from India, that is Tamil Nadu, they actually go for the same. So what happens is, the moment they use this method, Sri Lankan authorities arrest them. Okay, so this is a major problem again that we can understand. Now, if we read this particular article, so this lady called Nirmala Chandrahasan, she has suggested some possible solutions in this particular problem. For example, what we can do is we can set up a joint fisheries management, either a commission or a committee or something somehow, if we have Sri Lankan people, Indian people, Tamil Nadu people all coming together and try to sort out this problem of fishermen issue. So somehow give some quota to Indians, some quota to Sri Lankans, wherein both sides will get some fishery resources. That would be a good way. And ban this method of bottom trawling. Anyway, Sri Lankan government has done that. Indian government can also do that. And somehow if we promote some sustainable practices, that would be a much better way is what she is trying to say. So good solution, we can also say it's a good solution being suggested. Then she specifically talks about this ecological protection part, that marine area over here or the protected area over here or this exclusive economic zone over here. If you see this particular area, it is quite important from ecological perspective. So this has to be given more importance. And then good neighborhood policy is something we need, wherein no party or no side should show aggression or be in conflict, rather like good neighbors, behave like good neighbors, understand the other side and try to sort out things through dialogue, quiet diplomacy, mutual trust. Instead of making just statements, populist statements that Indians might be saying that we have all the right, or Sri Lanka is saying the same thing. This populist rhetoric is not a good thing. Rather you should go for this quiet diplomacy and try to sort it out. So these are all the solutions given by the writer in this particular article. Okay? Now, the next article. Next article is about ISRO inks agreement with HAL for transfer of SSLV technology. Now see, what you need to know is SSLV. What is SSLV? Okay, if you know this particular technology, what exactly it is? Small satellite launch vehicle. SSLV, when you say, it's about small satellite launch vehicle. Now you should know some basics. What do you understand by launch vehicle and all? Launch vehicle is nothing but a kind of rocket, you can say. You know, just like any other vehicle, like in let's say a bus, you sit there and the bus will carry you to some other location. Similarly, when you are sending something in the space, let's say you're sending a satellite, that satellite has to be carried by some vehicle. That vehicle is the launch vehicle. You can call it a rocket. Okay, so it will have all the engine, the fuel, like for example, it has this propulsion. So liquid or solid fuel engine it will be having. Using that engine, this will move. There will be different stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, different stages in which it will be having, you know, it has the capability, and some rockets are capable of going to this lower orbit, some going to the upper orbits or the orbits which normally we use for communication, satellite, etc. So normally any such vehicle is launch vehicle, which is sending the satellite. Now if you look at India's history, or especially the history of ISRO, who is using so many different launch vehicles. So initially we were using something called SLV, satellite launch vehicle. So initially when India or ISRO sent some satellites, like these Rohini satellites were launched in 1980. So they were using SLV. Then they improved this SLV and made it ASLV, that is Augmented Satellite Launch Vehicle, just an upgraded version. Then they came up with a new thing called as PSLV. The name is Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, PSLV. I would say PSLV is one of the best launch vehicle ISRO has ever made. That's why we even call it the workhorse rocket of ISRO. Why I'm calling it? Because it's one of the most reliable rocket, because it has shown successful launch of satellites so many times. You see, 57 successful launches and only 3 failures. You see, it's a good number. Like out of 60, 57 success, 3 failure. It's a good number, we can say. Okay, and you can see the payload capacity it has, how much it can send in the low Earth orbit, how much it can send in the GTO orbit. So good thing. So if you remember Chandrayaan 1, Mangalyaan mission, these are the missions in which we have actually used this PSLV. Okay, and the exact similar, or rather we can say we have PSLV which is performing good. Now we thought we should make something else, something little more powerful. So we developed something else called as GSLV, Geosynchronous Satellite Launch Vehicle. Now this one was specifically made so that we can send little heavier payloads, something little heavy, some heavy satellite into the space, that too in geostationary orbit. We are not talking about low Earth orbit, we are talking about geostationary orbit. So you might go for a very long duration, a very long distance as such in this space. So this was specifically made for that. And if you compare, see the payload capacity of PSLV in low Earth orbit and this one, you will see the difference. In GTO orbit, see the difference. Okay, so the capacity of this GSLV is way higher than that of PSLV is what we can say. And mostly when we want some communication satellite to be launched, because it has to be launched in GTO. So we use, most of the times we use GSLV. We can also use PSLV. It's not the case that we will not use it. Now, the upgraded or one of the version of GSLV is called as GSLV Mk3. In short, we call it as LVM3, Launch Vehicle Mark 3. This is India's heaviest rocket. We also call it Bahubali rocket. Okay, I'm just trying to give you a brief understanding of different launch vehicles India is having. Got it? Basic? Now we talk about small satellite launch vehicle. Now this is a new thing that we are doing. All these launch vehicles are there, okay, these are big heavy launch vehicles. Just imagine like a bus in which let's say 50 people can easily sit. You have made a launch vehicle like a bus where so many people, so many satellites can be there. But let's say I want to send a very small satellite, that too in just few days. If you want to make a PSLV or GSLV rocket, every time you have to make it, it takes a lot of time. Let's say 2 months, 3 months it takes. So many scientists are needed. So much amount of money is needed to build it. So most of the time you observe one thing. What ISRO does is, if they have to send just one satellite, they will not make PSLV. They'll take contract of 2, 3, let's say 20 satellites, 30 satellites, so many satellites they have to send in one go. Then they will make a PSLV, and in which they will send 20, 30, 40 satellites in one go. So it's like a bus in which so many satellites you can send, right? But now if I want to send just one satellite or 2, 3 satellites, small satellites, in that case I should have, instead of having a bus, let's have a car or something smaller that I can make easily, that will require less amount of money also, and I can send it, in which I will just send few people or few satellites in this particular case. So we developed this small satellite launch vehicle. Its payload capacity is just up to 500 kilograms. Okay, the capacity is very low, it's very small. It's a 3-stage solid propulsion launch vehicle. Solid propulsion means the fuel that will be used over here will be solid fuel. It could be solid, liquid, or maybe this cryogenic also. But here in this case, it's something called velocity trimming module, which is part of this technology of small satellite launch vehicle. What it exactly does is, velocity trimming module simply does one thing. Wherever you want to put the satellite, let's say you want to put it over here. This is the satellite. Exactly here you want to put it. You want to be very precise over here. For that precision, they use this velocity trimming module. That's the technology part. Okay. Now see the good thing, because it's going to be very small with very less payload capacity, you can build it very easily. You see, it can be assembled just in 72 hours. Normally PSLV and all, if you are making, it takes 70 days, 2 months, more than 2 months. And this one can be, so overall you can think about the significance, like it supports commercial small satellite market. Let's say suddenly someone comes to ISRO, says that, sir, we want to send one satellite. Will you do that? ISRO will say, okay, bring it, and we'll send one small satellite launch vehicle. Otherwise what was happening, you would have waited for at least 30, 40 satellites to send it. Because PSLV is very heavy, it requires so many things, right? Then strategic importance, let's say for defense, disaster management, you want to rapidly send some satellites, that's a good thing. It democratizes space access, because so many startups, universities, some small nations, they can also afford to use this SSLV for sending some of their satellites. And this could be on-demand service. On-demand means you want it right now, we'll do it right now. Okay, just like you're watching Netflix or something, it's an on-demand service. You want to watch a movie, just click watch. Similar way, you don't need to wait for one day when this PSLV will be made and then we will send our satellite. No, you just go to ISRO and tell we want it. They'll make it. Got it? Easy, not very difficult. You don't need to worry much about those technical words or technicalities. Just understand the basic part. Okay? Now, moving ahead, generational rage. Now, this article is specifically talking about the situation in. Yesterday, I had already discussed about what was happening in Nepal and what's the situation, why these things are happening. This is just an extension of the same article that we had discussed yesterday. Now, we are observing what's happening in Nepal. Here they have used a word, violent nihilism. Now, what is this nihilism is something I want you people to understand. The term nihilism comes from the Latin word nihil. Nihil means nothing. When you say nothing, nihilism is a belief in nothingness. There is nothing. So in terms of philosophy, in philosophy we many times talk about what is the objective of life, what is good life, what is bad life, what should we do, what we should not do, all these things we think about. So nihilism as part of philosophy, it says that life has no inherent meaning, purpose or value, because we said it believes in nothingness. There is nothing. There are people who used to say life has some purpose, you have to do this, that. They're saying no, life has no meaning, life is useless, life has no purpose, no value. When you say there is some morality, moral values, religions, institutions, all these are important, they will say no. All these are useless, baseless, have nothing. Human existence is essentially insignificant, useless is what they are simply saying. This is the philosophy of nihilism. Okay? Now, this we have seen in terms of philosophy. If you see the same thing in terms of ethics, what nihilism says is that you talk about those moral values and all those things. They say there is nothing called objective moral value as such. When you say something is good or bad, these are just human inventions. These are created by us. In reality, there is nothing good, nothing bad, nothing as such. When you call that killing is wrong, they say this is created by society. Social norms have said this is right, this is wrong. Nihilism says there is nothing called right and wrong or anything. There is nothing. So this is a very, very interesting kind of, philosophy and ethical branch is what we can understand. Now, when we see nihilism in terms of politics, something we call as political nihilism. So what they do is, when they are looking at everything, nothing, they are saying nothing is there. So when you have government, authority, law, different institutions, they start rejecting everything. They have no interest in any of that. And they have no belief in that. Just like Nepal, if you see, right now they don't have belief in Parliament, Supreme Court, any of that. They're rejecting everything. And now they have started burning it. Same is what happens in case of nihilism. People start advocating radical destruction of the existing system. They're not happy with the system that we have. They go for destroying everything. We have seen this happening in case of Russia in 19th century when they rejected the monarchy, church and the social norms that were existing in Russia of that time. So people started doing the similar thing which Nepalis are doing right now. So they are destroying all these institutions. This is political nihilism that we can observe. Okay? Now, what will be the consequence of this nihilism, good or bad? So there will be some good consequence. If you see, this nihilism is good when people become free from the blind faith in any particular tradition. If any organ is working bad, you are saying it's bad and you're going against it. So it is making people free. It is encouraging them to question the authority. Even if there is Parliament, Supreme Court, if they are doing everything wrong, then people are rejecting them, questioning their authority. And what you do is, let's say you have an existing system. When you already have an existing system, but it's a failure system, it's not a good system, you question this particular system, then what happens is you try to destroy this system so that some new system can be created, or some new value-based system can be created. Okay, this is a good thing. Now there is a bad dimension to this. The negative part is this can lead to despair, hopelessness and moral collapse. You are destroying the existing system, but you are not directly, right now you are not giving any alternate system. Whatever people are doing in Nepal right now, they're destroying whatever is existing, but nobody is creating any alternative system right away. Now this is a chaotic situation, very chaotic, and this can lead to hopelessness, moral collapse, and this can fuel all the destructive movements, due to which you will see that everything will be destroyed. This is something we say is not a good thing. You know, this can lead to extreme radicalism or apathy, extreme stuff which is happening in Nepal. So the point is, it has good thing, it has bad thing inherent in it. So this is all about nihilism, which you can understand theoretically. So we are saying right now the same thing is happening in case of Nepal. The youth is disillusioned, right? You see, they are rejecting all institutions. Now this is a threat to the democracy, because democracy is the model they had chosen. Democracy could not deliver it. The elites have captured the democracy, and corruption, nepotism, all has taken place. But these people are now even destroying the democratic institutions and democratic setup. What I'm trying to say is, building of roads is one of the most important thing you can do, with respect to this Naxal affected areas or Maoist areas. What they're saying is, when you make roads, it's not just about transportation facility that you have provided, but it represents that state is present. You see why Naxalism came into picture? Because there is no development. State is not present over there. And when state is not there, the non-state actors come into picture, the Naxals come into picture. State shows its presence by building these roads. State's presence is there, people will reach out to state and not the non-state actors. So they say this road development in the conflict zones actually stabilizes this conflict zone, makes it better. Once you build the roads, then other things will come in. For example, electricity, healthcare, school, jobs, all other things will come into picture. If you see the Chhattisgarh strategy to deal with this problem of Naxalism, they first started building the roads. Once it was done, then they started building schools. Once it is done, then they started building clinics, law enforcement, etc., etc. So building roads should be the first step to deal with the Naxal issue, is what the article is trying to suggest in brief. I suggest you to read the article. It's a good article just for your reading and the vocabulary building. Okay? So that's all from today's newspaper. Thank you so much for joining. We'll meet tomorrow. Thank you.